So, I know this video is quite different than my typical my thoughts on blank. However, after recently playing the latest event in Genshin Impact, I wanted to take a moment to talk about some of my thoughts on some of the characters. This isn't a full-blown review or analysis like some of my other videos. This is really just me talking about some thoughts I had just based on the newest location, Sumeru. So I will start this video off by saying this isn't a highly researched reflection, nor am I someone who seeks out any supplementary materials on Genshin. So really this video analysis is purely my thoughts. Minor spoilers for the new Genshin event, so if you don't want to know about that, I would click off here. But essentially there's this competition happening between darshans, which are essentially academic branches or majors within the academia of Sumeru, and each branch is represented by a student or alumni. Each character who was nominated is regarded as a genius or highly intelligent, and those referrals were what spurred me to start thinking about the parameters of the word genius, and why I love the fact that characters with vastly different strengths, weaknesses, and learning types are all given the title. The 4 characters I'm going to focus on in this video are Alhaitham, Kaveh, Cyno, and Tighnari, because I feel as though I know the most about them, and thus have the most to say about them, but I would be happy for anyone to contribute thoughts on Layla, Faruzan, or any other academia scholars. I'm going to start the video off by talking about Alhaitham. His genius, I find, is the easiest to define. His strength comes from his ability to derive knowledge from books or reading. He's very adept at making his own connections and patterns in his mind, purely based off the material he reads. He's essentially a walking encyclopedia, and very arrogant because of it. He knows he's smart, and he uses that information purely for his own benefit. For example, him helping to save Nahida because he wanted to go back to his cushy office job. In my opinion, I think Alhaitham was the type of person that everyone either hated or was jealous of. They put in what appeared to be, or what actually was, very minimal effort, and achieved incredible results. This is running away from me a little bit, but I just wanted to acknowledge that Alhaitham's strength comes from his ability to learn adeptly through books. Moving on, I wanted to talk about Tighnari next, because I feel he's the branching midpoint between the 4 of them. Tighnari is obviously like Alhaitham in the fact that he's able to pick up new knowledge through books. However, I also want to point out that he also takes a hands-on approach to his research on topics he's passionate about, as seen in his trailer when he's examining and writing his notes on the sweetwater mushroom, even going so far as to physically experience the symptoms himself, which is very, very ill-advised, especially by Tighnari himself. So yes, Tighnari is a well-rounded student. How is he any different from the rest of them? Well, I think what separates Tighnari is his qualities as a teacher. Tighnari constantly seeks to spread his knowledge, as seen through his teachings with Kaveh and the other forest rangers, as well as his Avidia Forest Fungi guidebook he has going on. And I think there's a lot of value and learning that comes from being a teacher, because sometimes students ask really good questions. So yeah, stick Tighnari in a room full of books, and he'll come away with some knowledge, sure. But put him in a room with a bunch of curious biology students, and he's definitely coming away with a lot more. Moving right along, Cyno is a bit different from Tighnari and Alhaitham. I believe he lacks the cool-headedness to truly be put in the same category as the other 2. I feel as though Cyno is prone to jumping to conclusions and acting on his own, as seen mainly during the Archon quest when he attacks Alhaitham based on his suspicions. Granted, I would attack Alhaitham too because he was being a bit of a douche nozzle at the time, and obviously the Archon quest was a stressful time for all of them, so I won't go as far to say that this is a detrimental character flaw, but I do want to acknowledge that impulsivity is a trait Cyno shows. Furthermore, we also know from various people that Cyno spends a lot of his time away from the academia hunting down various marks. While I have no doubt that Cyno is definitely in the same league as Tighnari and Alhaitham, it's shown very clearly that his strengths lie away from the classroom as both a teacher and a student. Cyno's good at solving puzzles, essentially, putting together clues to draw often very accurate conclusions. Not to mention, he must be incredibly knowledgeable on all things survival and fighting, considering the sheer amount of traveling and protecting he does. On another hand, I want to mention that I think Cyno has the best work-life balance out of the 4 of them. Granted, his competition isn't very high. He takes his job incredibly seriously, and he does it extremely well. Unlike Alhaitham, he will put in those overtime hours if needed. However, despite having a very serious position, when Cyno's off the clock, he's almost like a different person. He tells jokes, he gushes about Genius Invocation, he hangs out with his family, like he's living his best life. He's very clearly got his life divided and balanced. Cyno is an investigator at heart, and an incredibly good one at that, and I honestly think he's very far from the traditional scholar. Finally, that brings us to Kaveh, who is the one that really inspired me to talk about this. When Kaveh was first introduced, I really liked him based off of how he played off Alhaitham, As he got more and more screen time, that was really leaned into. I didn't really see Kaveh as anything more than Alhaitham's roommate, whose life kind of sucked and was often seen as the butt of the joke. In all honesty, Kaveh almost seemed like someone, from the outside looking in, would call not quite dumb, but certainly something. His immense amount of debt after constructing his magnum opus, not to mention his dramatics, all make him seem like he's kind of a burnout who's not quite willing to accept it. Then I played the event. Again, like I said for Cyno and Tighnari, I have no doubt that Kaveh is book smart. However, being an architect, I think that his main strength is learning by doing. And he's really good at what he does. Not to mention, Kaveh runs on a very set moral code. He has high expectations for himself and holds himself very accountable for his actions, hence not accepting Faruzan's offered points in the first round of the competition and helping the Desert Foxes in the second round. Kaveh is an immensely good person with strong worldviews and philosophies. He's also incredibly self-aware. For example, he acknowledges that writing off Sershin's research might have been arrogant of him, but it's still something he believes to be right. Kaveh's strength comes not only from his character, but his in-field work in architecture as well. So, we have the bookworm, the teacher, the investigator, and the architect with a heart of gold. Each of these characters is described as a genius despite vastly different specialties, philosophies, and learning types. And I think that fact in and of itself is incredibly important. I believe school can be one of the most stressful environments to be in, on a high school level, university level, college level, whatever, either due to outside pressure or self-inflicted pressure. Not only is there a lot of value placed on grades, but there's also the inherent superiority that comes with studying different subjects. For me personally, it would be being told multiple times from multiple people throughout high school that biology was a waste of time and not a real science. Don't let Tighnari hear you talking like that. Or also being told that as a culinary student myself, we're not expected to be good at math or smart or anything like that, just because of the field we pursue. Continuing on with my personal feelings, I especially think the value that is placed on test scores and numbers is incredibly overrated and detrimental to one's mental health as a whole. The academia, though fictional, does a good job of recreating the stress the students are under, but also the nature of the students themselves. We have the apathetic ones, the cutthroat, I will do better than you, and I will push you down ones, and the ones who pile on themselves and just keep trying to meet their own self-inflicted expectations. Honestly, I kind of stress myself out just listening to some of the students in the Archon quest. However, despite that, I love the focus on the geniuses of the academia. Your value as a person or scholar isn't less just because you can't pick up knowledge out of a book, or based on the topics you find interesting. Having things you're passionate about and enjoy, and being able to balance things and take breaks to enjoy them isn't a weakness. And finally, having skills that lie in a less conventional place and being set back due to life circumstances doesn't mean you can't bounce back. Alhaitham, Cyno, Tighnari, and Kaveh are all geniuses. They're all deserving of the title despite their vastly different personalities and accomplishments. And I think understanding that is important to understanding how unique people are, and how we are all able to contribute something to the world.